Thank God it's Monday. Welcome to a new week, and it's great to start off the Working with Business morning, because then you're sure that you'll be empowered with current and relevant information that will see you through the week. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we start off in the grains market, where Chicago wheat slid for the first time in 4 sessions, although the downside in prices was limited on slowing grain export from Ukraine and uncertainty over the extension of the Black Sea export deal. Corn and soybeans lost ground ahead of a weekly planting progress due to be issued by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The most active wheat contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade gave up 0.3% at $6.58 for a bushel, after hitting a 2-week high of $6.64 a bushel in the previous session. Corn fell 0.2% to $5.95 for a quarter of a bushel, and soybeans lost 0.1% to $14.35 for half a bushel. Russia is still not satisfied with how the issue of Russian agricultural exports as part of the Black Sea grain deal is being resolved, and the foreign minister had said that on Saturday after the latest talks with a top UN official. The pace of shipments from Ukraine under a UN-backed initiative has slowed as concerns grow over ships getting stuck if a deal is not renewed later this month. Though remember that May the 18th is when that deal expires, and we are looking forward to an extension or renewal of that deal. We move over to the global oil space. Prices rose slightly in early Asian trade on Monday as fears of a recession in the United States, which drove prices down for 3 straight weeks for the first time since November, began to recede. Brent crude futures were up 6 cents at $75.35 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were also up 8 cents to $71.42 a barrel. Concerns that the United States banking crisis will slow the economy and sap fuel demand in the world's biggest oil-consuming nation drove the Brent benchmark down 5.3% last week and sent WTI plunging 7.1%, despite a sharp rebound on Friday, which saw the benchmarks gain about 4% each. A healthy U.S. jobs report for April, a weaker dollar, and expectations of supply cuts at the next meeting of OPEC Plus, called in June, have helped stop the slide in prices. The United States is expected to report consumer price inflation figures on Wednesday. That's the one for April, and could provide further clues on interest rate moves amid broad expectation that the U.S. Federal Reserve will pause rate hikes. Also in focus are 2 reports on the United States credit condition and loan demand, which will be more closely watched than usual in light of the recent stress in regional banking. And back here in Nigeria, it counts down because President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to inaugurate the Devt refinery, which is the world's largest single-train refinery, on the 22nd of May 22nd, 2023. Special Assistant to the President on Digital Communications, Bashir Ahmed, announced this development in a tweet on his official handle. Well, the tweet reads, "Efforts by the federal government to make Nigeria self-sufficient in local refining of crude oil to save the scarce foreign exchange used in importation of petroleum products have received a boost as the 650,000 barrels per day Devt refinery, which is the world's largest single-train refinery, is set to be inaugurated on May the 22nd, 2023, by the President, Muhammadu Buhari. The refinery is expected to process a variety of light and medium grades of crude to produce Euro V quality clean fuels, including gasoline and diesel, as well as jet fuel and polypropylene. The Devt refinery's cost grew to $19 billion from an initial estimate of between $12 billion and $14 billion after years of delay. Still in Nigeria, the chief executive of the Nigerian Upstream Downstream Regulatory Commission, Mr. Agbenga Komolafe, has been highlighting the need to develop the country's hydrocarbon resources, which requires huge funding, hence the decision of the commission to develop alternative funding model for the industry. Mr. Komolafe said this today during the opening ceremony of the Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria Pavilion and Exhibition stand at the ongoing Offshore Technology Conference going on at Texas, United States. According to him, Nigeria will not be left behind in the energy conversation discussion, as the country is a place where needs meet opportunities. The Nigerian Upstream Downstream Regulatory Commission says that the federal government has concluded plans to explore alternative funding models for development of the country's oil and gas resources. Away from oil now, the executive director of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, Mr. Ezra Yakusak, announced plans to set up cashew processing centers across the country. The intervention, according to NEPC, targets value addition for cashew nuts exports, which will in turn create jobs and boost foreign exchange earnings for the government. Mr. Yakusak was speaking at a meeting with cashew farmers in Ogbomoso local government area of Oyo State.
The Minister of Youth and Sports Development and Executive Director of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council arrived at Ogbomoso community in Oyo State to meet with cashew farmers. Nigeria is the fourth leading producer of raw cashew nuts in Africa, with about 19 producing states. According to statistical data obtained from the pre-shipment inspection agents, raw cashew nut is the fifth leading non-oil exportable product in Nigeria in the 2022 non-oil performance report. In the report, Nigeria exported 315,677 million metric tons of raw cashew nuts worth $252 million. In spite of the huge contribution to the economy, the potential in the sector remains untapped.
To add value, the cashew need to be processed because we discourage the export of raw cashew nut. Instead, we encourage the export of value-added products. We've agreed to make some intervention on cashew, and that intervention is to see how we can set up cashew processing centers so that we can add that value that is required.
Nigeria's cashew export trade is largely hampered by non-adherence to food safety standards, lack of traceability, low yield per hectare, poor farming practices, aging trees, and lack of processing, amongst others.
So for 33 years,
the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, who is also a cashew farmer, is optimistic that adding value before export remains a sure way to job creation.
When I look around, I see a lot of young people. And that, for me, is exciting. Why? When you develop the value chain of cashew, a lot of young people can get employed. In fact, they can become rich. The same wealth we got from cocoa, you can get from cashew.
Cashew farmers, on their part, highlight some concerns and call for more support to boost production and export of the product.
We will still be glad if the government help us to expand our farms. And we will be glad, sir. Farmers are doing everything possible to produce. We still need to produce more. Our research revealed that we have the land to produce quality cashew, but there's no help.
Cashew nuts ranks 5th on the list of the top 10 products exported in the first quarter of 2023, while accounting for 5.2% of Nigeria's non-oil export portfolio.
Well, it's interesting to note that the Minister of Youth and Sports Development is also a cashew farmer. That's interesting. It means that the government should be able to get first-hand information about the true state of things. Also, seeing the NEPC visit the farmers in their own place of operations is also heartwarming, because that should be able to cut off the bureaucracy and all of the distortion of information that sometimes clouds policy decisions and policy implementation. So hopefully we'll see more of that, and better than that, we will see the implementation of some of those promises made right there and in other places. Now let's talk about small businesses who feed on farmers like the cashew nuts farmers that we just saw there. The International Labour Organization has reported that micro, small and medium enterprises, that's the MSMEs, contribute 48% of Nigeria's national gross domestic product, that's the GDP. They account for 96% of businesses and 84% of employment in the country. Unfortunately, the state of health of these businesses seem to be failing, as there are suggestions of rising spate of small businesses in the country. Let's delve into this, get more information, and better still, the way out with Celestine Okeke. He's an enterprise development professional, and he joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Mr. Okeke. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. So how true is this impression that small businesses are failing? There's a high rate of failure of small businesses in the country at this time.
Okay, while we don't have an official data in terms of your MBS publishing data on failure of small businesses, you will recall that the DG Smith is the Agency for Small Businesses in Nigeria, did say about 2 million small businesses have failed in the last, I think, a year or two. So for a government agency to openly admit that MSMEs are failing in that number, in that proportion, and then with what we already know over the last 3, 4, 5 years, the reality is that more MSMEs have failed for a combination of factors and reasons.
So I know that the latest we've heard from a lot of manufacturers in the country has been the cash crunch. Because obviously a lot of these small businesses deal in cash, and you know, when you squeeze out that cash from the economy, then it stops the transaction and stops their businesses. Now I believe we have cash to some extent, because even the CBN has said about 71% increase in cash in circulation. Is there a path to recovery? Is there recovery on board? Are we still, you know, squeezed?
Okay, so let's even get it more, let's put it in better context. The cash crunch is a recent event, so is the COVID. COVID to me is a recent event. And this is speaking in the context of how small businesses have failed in Nigeria. And I'm saying there are more fundamental challenges with the MSME space in Nigeria outside of the cash crunch or what we had with the COVID epidemic back then. And this would include, for instance, the policy ecosystem in Nigeria supporting small businesses or which regulates small businesses. Let me give an example. If a small business opens in any corner in Nigeria, I repeat, any corner in Nigeria, be it in the FCT, be it in Lagos State, Enugu State, Kano, anywhere, the first visitors that business would get to be government regulatory agencies coming to demand tax or one payment or the other. You would hardly get a support system coming to say, oh, you set up, what are you setting up to do? How can we support you? What is your plan? And also, if you go on Google and you search for, say, I want to start a business in Nigeria, and you're looking for support or for information, I tell you the first 10 information you will get to be from from services that you have to pay for to start a business. So the fundamental problems are not what we had with the cash crunch or with the COVID epidemic. They are first around the policy ecosystem in Nigeria. It is stifling. It is not supporting small businesses. And after that is then how do we perceive small businesses? How do we embrace it in Nigeria? And one other key factor too is the pipeline producing entrepreneurs. I keep saying this. A huge chunk of our entrepreneurs are hustler entrepreneurs, people who are coming into business to survive, and people who don't get the right kind of education, the right kind of training, the right kind of knowledge they need to get before they set up businesses. So these are more fundamental challenges than whether we had a cash crunch of recent or whether we had COVID. Or other countries had COVID and they came out of it. They didn't report losing millions of small businesses. Other countries may have had some variant of cash crunch. They didn't come back saying businesses have closed and are not able to come back. So I'm simply saying we have more fundamental issues we need to begin to address. One, the policy ecosystem. Two, how we perceive and how the community embraces entrepreneurs. And then thirdly, the pipeline through which we produce entrepreneurs. We need to fix these fundamental issues first.
Yeah, those are a lot that you talked about. I mean, saying that some entrepreneurs who are in the ecosystem, the small businesses, are hustlers. I guess that should be a motivation. I mean, survival, I guess, should be a motivation, even though we do know that a better motivation would be the passion for maybe whatever you are doing. But then how do we solve that? People have to survive, and so people just see, what can I do to survive? Is there a need to change that?
Okay, so they said necessity brings about invention. So it's not bad that you're starting a business because you need to survive. But then I'm simply saying, both at the federal and the sub-national level, we begin to look at how we develop structures to support enterprise promotion and development in Nigeria. Let me give you an instance. Across our tertiary institution, whether it's your university, your polytechnic, your college of education, except for the polytechnics where MBT came up with a curriculum for enterprise education in 2007, which has not been revised. The NUC, Nigerian University Commission, has not up to date developed a curriculum for enterprise education across our universities. So what you then have is different universities. Abuja has its own curriculum, University of Jos has its, and nobody's regulating, nobody's saying, does the quality of enterprise education in these universities, is it meeting our realities, the market realities, the ecosystem realities, such that when you leave the university and then out of a need to survive, you want to start a small business, you are, if not well equipped, you have basic information on one, for instance, how to get your location, how to generate your business idea, and then how to test that business idea, how to validate it before you start investing. And I'll tell you, I've seen people who start up enterprises and then maybe the person had 10,000 as total capital, and then they invest 100% of that sum in a business they have not tested. And then when something happens down the line, they lose the entire fund and then they go back. So there are basic things that needs to happen, that needs to be done. People need to survive. Yes, they start business fine, but then is the ecosystem good enough for them to thrive? Is government giving them the level of support they need to have? Are there structures that would enable entrepreneurship? Those are the key issues before we discuss the recent happenings in the country.
And then the government, this administration, President Muhammad Buhari, signed the Startup Bill Now Act into law, and this is supposed to help that space, make it more friendly, provide some incentives and encouragement for startups. Don't you think something like that, a law like that, should be able to make a difference?
Okay, so if you ask me, I don't have an issue with the startup bill, but a couple of concerns do come to my mind. I'm still reviewing the document in full detail. One, the startup bill is domiciled with NIDA, Information Technology Development Agency, and not with SMIDAN, that has the mandate to develop the ecosystem of MSMEs in the country. Secondly, I haven't seen a kind of collaboration between NIDA, SMIDAN to drive that startup bill. So in effect, I'm saying that that startup bill tends to want to address the issue in the ICT space, in the digital economy space, not necessarily the MSME space in Nigeria. That is the concern for me. And I'm hoping to find a time where you would then see enhanced collaboration between NIDA and SMIDAN to say, okay, how do we make this to reflect the needs of MSMEs in Nigeria? Otherwise, the startup bill might just go on 1, 2, 3 years down the line, and we won't see positive impact it will have on the MSME sector.
All right, so I guess that's another conversation for collaboration between agencies of government to get the best of it. Then in your earlier, you also talked about the issue of taxes, but it is the responsibility of businesses to pay taxes. And we know that the country needs more revenue. We've been seeing our debts, and we've heard even the IMF advise that the tax nets be enlarged, and broadened to capture more people. So how would you suggest that small businesses are treated? Already the laws have some exemptions, for if you're not earning up to certain amounts and stuff like that. What else would you like to see when it comes to the issue of taxes and small businesses?
Okay, so I'm not sure anybody in his right mind will tell you businesses should not pay tax, whether they are micro, small, medium, or large enterprises. They all have to pay tax. But you don't have the challenge of the tax administration not reflecting what it should be. Let me give you an instance. I came up on a tweet sometime last week where someone said there's a new policy from AMAC, that's Abuja Municipal Area Council, where your trucks are now to pay, I think, 10,000 or so per annum for a new tax policy. So the challenge here is that there is little or no coordination between the federal, the state, and the local government officials on what tax is appropriate for MSMEs and how this tax should be paid. So there's no coordination. And then the multiplicity of the tax is another big problem. So if you ask, say, the AMAC Area Council now in the FCT here to give you a listing of the approved taxes that small businesses should pay, and then you go on the field to see if that is what's on ground, you will find a whole lot of discrepancy. So what the question here is this: the tax ecosystem in Nigeria is killing small businesses. They pay all manner of taxes. Of recent, in Anambra State, you have conversation around the new government coming in and then license several private tax I call them tax collectors, who go on wear all manner of different uniform, and they're asking for different kind of taxes. At some point, the state government said it was suspending that round of licensing for private collectors. So what I'm saying is our taxes are not reflective of what our realities are. You have a situation where different people are licensed to collect tax on behalf of government, and then they go back and increase these taxes and collect it in a way or manner that stifles and kills small businesses. They should pay tax, but then we should be more pragmatic in how we roll out tax obligation for businesses, and then be more transparent on how these taxes should be paid. There's nothing stopping the state government, like Anambra State, for instance, to come up with a portal where all category of businesses will log in, see what they are meant to pay, see how to pay it, and make the payment online. But when you license private collectors, these guys go on the street and do all manner of things. In the FCT here, the case is not different. You drive within the city center, you see all manner of people in uniform asking for all different kind of taxes. So I'm simply saying we need to be more pragmatic and then think around a tax policy that works for small businesses, not what you presently have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess even the big businesses will complain because we're still talking about the 2022 finance bill, which the president hasn't assented to, and then we woke up to those new set of taxes, which will increase, I think, beer, alcohol, rice, and imported vehicle. And at the end of the day, I mean, businesses are involved in all of this and the impact. But I guess it's a good time to have this conversation because in a couple of weeks or so, we'll have a new administration, you know, come on board. What would you say you would like to see from the incoming administration led by President-elect Bola Tinubu when it comes to helping the small? I mean, we've seen the numbers, the small businesses employing more than about 80% or so of Nigerians, especially the youth. You know, so what would you say should be done? First few steps, low-hanging fruits, you know, to help these businesses sit up better, considering the realities of our time, inflation, cash crunch, and all of that. FX issues also in there.
Okay, so I'll speak based on my experience and based on my knowledge of the sector. One, we need to adopt a commonality of approach, a singular approach to developing the MSME sector. In one of the news you played before the interview started about the cashew value chain in the Southwest, specifically Osun State. Now, I see a little bit of discrepancy in what that program seeks to achieve and what the African Development Bank Export Processing Zone program also seeks to achieve. So what you do have then is you have different government agencies running at parallel, doing different things, and then not even addressing the key challenge, which would be, for instance, in the cashew news you gave out. You had the government say they want to come to establish processing maybe plants or facilities, and then you hear the farmer telling you they need to expand what they are doing, they need to scale up what they are doing, because if they are not scaling up and you give them the production facility, what will they produce there? So there is a need for us to, and this cuts across not just the cashew, different subsectors of the MSME space. We need to first frame what the problems are. And when I say frame, we need to identify what the key challenges are, what factors are driving these challenges, and how do we address it. I'll give an instance. In Imo State, in 2015, we mirrored the oil palm producing communities in the state across the 21 local government. And one key problem that we came out was to say, look, the last time any government intervened for that sector was during the 1999 to 2003 government of Udenwa, and he gave them milling equipment and all manner of things, but he didn't address the production of oil palm in Imo State. The oil palm plantation in the states have been declining from that time till date. The same thing is happening for the cashew subsector. So we need to identify what the key problems are. Let's not assume we know what the problems are, and then go with an intervention where you will hear government say A and the farmers are telling you B, or government say A and the small business owner is telling you B. We need to sit back, first reconstitute the National Council on MSMEs. I keep saying it, we need to reconstitute that committee, make it more pragmatic, make it, let it have the kind of stakeholders they need to have in that council, and then let's have an overarching approach to supporting the sector, where we have a central process for developing what interventions we need to have, how to be coordinated, so that we don't go back to the point where we had from the same NEPC, the one state, one product, they called it OSOP back then, one state, one product initiative, from NEPC, which died a natural death because it was not developed bearing in mind the challenges of the sector it wants to intervene. So if you ask me, I would say first, the Income Administration should reconstitute the National Council on MSMEs and make it such that we have a commonality of approach, whether you are NEPC, whether you are NIPC, whether you are ND, whether you are SMIDAN, there should be like a clearing board where you all come and sit, and then to be defined what kind of problems we have and how we would intervene in that problem. Otherwise, if we rush into interventions that are not based on any needs assessment, we would miss it. So let's reconstitute the National Council on MSMEs and do a problem framing research, where we research what the exact problems are and then come up with a solution on how we want to address those problems. Anything outside of this, for me, would not work.
But do you think that, seeing the NEPC boss right there with the farmers, perhaps that could be a beginning? Yes, he did talk about how they want to set up processing plants, but he was there interacting with the farmers, and the farmers were saying, we need to expand. Do you think this interaction could actually, bring up something different?
Okay, so I'm not dismissing that visit or what it can possibly bring out. I'm not dismissing that, but let me be very clear. There's what is called needs assessment for project development and intervention. You first need to assess what the needs are. Do basic research that would give you information, clear information on what the challenges in that sector or subsector is. And then on the back of that intervention, you first meet with stakeholders. You meet with stakeholders, and stakeholders will give you their own view of what the challenges are. Then you come up with a policy statement on what needs to happen, so that we avoid a situation where you go to a community and say you want to give them processing facility, and they're telling you, no, we need to first increase our capacity, because the yield per hectare for most of the crops we grow in Nigeria, whether it's food crop or catch crop, is among the least in Africa, not to even talk of the world. Our cashew yield per hectare, I tell you, if you do your research, is among the least. So it's simply saying there are possibly better varieties of cashew nut that should be grown as against what we were growing before now, or better ways to treat what we have now, better ways to harvest and process them. So I'm saying this thing should be incremental. First, in this assessment, to identify what the challenges are. You sit with the same farmers you had gone on telly to say A and they're saying B. Get them to validate what you have come up with your research, and then a policy statement to say, okay, the cashew evaluation in Nigeria, we are launching a 1-year intervention, or we're launching a 2 or 3, 4-year intervention. In the first year, we would support farmers who already have cashew plantation to make sure the cashew trees they have are taken care of in terms of whether we need to treat the trees or not. And then we are going to plant an additional 5,000 or 5 million cashew trees, and we are training the farmers of modern practices of cashew tree management and the rest. That is how a policy works. Not when you rush to the field, you speak to farmers and they're telling you B. And that has been our reality. I'm simply saying there are better approaches to supporting the MSME sector in Nigeria beyond first going on the news. And then, to me, I felt a bit embarrassed that the farmers were saying, no, our problem is that we need to first scale up. We need to expand what we are doing. Let's address that first before you give us a processing facility. Because that was how we played with the oil palm sector in Imo State. And today you have the oil palm sector in Imo State is going down because there are no new trees planted, or at least not sufficient new trees planted in the last 10 years. In Imo State, and they have a production facility that are not getting the oil palm to mill.
All right. Well, the NEPC watches this program. They are regular, and we'll certainly reach out to them to say, oh, there's worry about, you know, what the farmers are asking for and what you are proposing, and we hope that there'll be a meeting point before implementation. Thank you so much, Mr. Celestine Okeke, Enterprise Development Professional, for your thoughts this morning.
Thank you, Ini. Thank you for having me.
We're still staying in that real sector. Some time ago, there was the announcement of egg gluts in the country. Is the situation any better now? We'll have that conversation after the break here on Business Morning. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. Poultry Farmers Association of Nigeria, PAN, has valued the nation's poultry industry at 3 trillion naira. How much of that has been explored is, however, another conversation. In recent times, there's been the glut of eggs, and eggs have been one of the challenges reported by a lot of poultry farmers following some harsh economic realities. Let's find out the update on this and a whole lot more with Mr. Godwin Egbebe. He's the National Publicity Secretary of Poultry Association of Nigeria, joins us here in the studio. Mr. Egbebe, good morning. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So tell us, what is the situation now? We know there were reports of gluts of eggs, you know, some months ago. Is it normalized now? Is everything okay?
It's not normalized at all. We are still facing that problem because we have a lot of eggs on the farm as we speak, and we have been trying to, cry to government to see what they can do to ameliorate the problem we are going through, because our business is perishable goods that we produce. So.
But eggs are not cheaper, or did I miss that?
Well, I think it is part of the problem, because those that are selling, that's the middlemen, and those other end sellers, like I will call them, supermarkets, those that do confectionaries that uses our product. Even in the market women, you will be there, they buy your product at a very ridiculous price and they sell at a very high price. So it also slows down the process of marketing. So when they buy very cheap from us, they sell at a high price. So that's we that are producing, we are really going
because if it was cheaper, I'm sure some people would, there'll be more demand. People would just be like, oh, it's cheaper now, let me do more things with eggs, maybe give the children more eggs, and parents who were not thinking about it before now.
So those are part of the problem. So we are also looking at that to see how we can ensure that maybe we are looking at that as an association.
Yeah, so are you also talking to the government? Because I know there was a call, the government should buy them off you.
Very well.
You have the school feeding program and some of those programs which government can easily use the eggs for. Is that bringing any fruit?
Well, the government, they were doing school feeding before, but they've stopped. I think they stopped last year. So school children have resumed, and the program have not started. We have been asking the government to please try and see that this program comes back. And the way it is now, we are losing in billions. Across the country, we are losing in billions. So we ask the government, just try and see what you can do to buy this thing off us. We have a lot of places you can send it to. The IDP camps, they are malnourished there, they are suffering. You can buy this egg off from us and take it to them. People in government hospitals, You know, sometimes they give them meal, which they pay for. So they can buy these eggs from us and give to them. Also, the people in the prison. So we have a lot of places that the government can off-take this egg from us and take it to them.
So you are the National Publicity Secretary of PAN.
Yeah.
How many state governments, for instance, have you interacted with on these ideas?
Well, we've done that with all state governments. Even it is in public view that we did a press conference in Ibadan. So everybody is aware. All the government officials are aware. The governors are aware. So it is not an hidden thing.
But there hasn't been any response?
Yeah, Lagos State and Ogun State, they did 10,000 crates each, which is a far cry, just like taking 10,000 crates of egg from just one farm. And we have a lot of farms all over across the nation. So I think Plateau State also did a little. So those are the only 3 states that just did a little. And you know, Lagos is one place that every products are brought to across the nation. They push their eggs to Lagos because they know that Lagos is a big market. So it's not as if the eggs we Lagos farmers produce is even enough for Lagos populace. But majority of the eggs are coming from outside. So that is why we say, okay, if other states, governors are also off-taking from the association, especially our members, you will see that this problem will reduce. So the problem is still there. We are still bearing eggs. Our farmers are bearing eggs. We have buried close to over 2 million eggs.
From what time to what time?
From January to date. From January to date.
2 million eggs?
Yes, have been buried.
But, I mean, can't you break the middleman chain?
All those are the things we are looking at now.
Because, I mean, if the middlemen are making it difficult for you...
Even Lagos State's government, they did not really off-take from us directly. They brought somebody to off-take. You understand? And the price that the person even bought was very ridiculous, but there was nothing we could do. It's better than burying the eggs. So that's why we had to accept that price.
And you still have the chicken, of course, laying more eggs.
Every day. The chicken will lay every day. They lay eggs every day. So you can't stop them. So, but what we are trying to tell our members to do now is to see how they can reduce the egg production in way of feeding. So you reduce their feeding so that their production level will also drop.
But won't that affect the health of the...
It won't affect the earth, it will only affect the production. Because you cannot be producing, spending more money for feed, which is not cheap, and you cannot sell your eggs. So those are some of the issues.
So I read about this thing called egg flour. I don't know.
Egg powder.
Egg powder, thank you.
Yes.
Is it a reality here? Is it something you can also imbibe?
Yes, like the Lagos State government in collaboration with World Bank, that's their peace program. They are doing something for us now. I think it's about 90 to 95% completion. But that is not just a cottage industry that will not take more than, we can just produce maybe like 5 tons a month. So it's just a trial program. And I believe that the federal government can come in as we speak to set up, even if it is one they can set up for us first.
So tell us about it, really, the egg powder. You process it and then later on it can be used, can be fried and...
Just like every other product that you have that are put in sachets. You understand what I mean? So you take the egg there, there's a process it goes through. Like my own farm now, what we try to do, we don't use antibiotics because we want to make sure that our products are internationally accepted. So that's the egg powders, because that's what they are complaining that maybe we are using antibiotics, and the ones that all these big industries are using in Nigeria, because they import a lot in trillions of naira every year, all these big confectionaries, all these people that
import
that does
what?
egg powder. Yes, they import it into
when
the
we have eggs wasting in Nigeria.
We have egg wasting. So their own complaint now is that maybe we are not doing antibiotics-free production. So like my farm and some other farms, so because of this cottage industry that is coming, we started doing that's the organic farming without antibiotics.
What level is the cottage industry for the egg powder?
That's what I'm saying. I say it's about 5 tons per month.
No, what stage of implementation?
90 to 95.
By the federal government?
Not federal, by Lagos State.
By Lagos State government?
And World Bank.
Okay.
Yes.
Where is it?
It's located at Igbodu in Ekpe.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's not going to consume much. It's not going to
consume much. So just like a pilot project, let's see how it goes, and we'll take it from there. But I think the West actually is a hub of poultry. There's no doubt about that. So if the federal government want to do anything like giving us an egg powder machine, they should start.
But individuals, the private sector can easily see this as a business venture. They're going to make money out of it, isn't it?
They are going to make money out of it. It's like the businesses in Nigeria is like all commerce affair. Somebody is waiting for somebody to try. And soon as the person comes in and the person is making progress, every other person will want to jump in and see, So those are some of the problems we are facing.
All right, well, here as the media, we will continue to talk to, bring this matter to the fore and hope that something happens to it, because, if the poultry industry is suffering, it affects us also, so we want you to talk about it. But thank you so much for your time, Mr. Godwin Egbebe, National Publicity Secretary of Poultry Association of Nigeria. Wish you the very best, and we'll try to keep this in the news to get more governors' attention, and maybe eventually...
Especially the incoming government.
Especially the incoming government.
We should
Let
try
them
and do
know.
something.
All right, thank you so much for your time. So there you have it. There's another business enterprise waiting to be explored. That is, if you're an entrepreneur, you could get into this egg powder business, and you might be able to make some money from there. Eggs are wasting, and they're looking for how to be used. But anyway, let's move on to not the egg market now, but the money market with Will Ibong. I don't know, Will, have you had your egg today?
I did not have an egg.
Oh, you should see Mr. Egbebe. Have some eggs.
I was so, interested about the egg powder. Like, do you fry it? How do you do it? Do you make it like... It's quite... I've never seen it. It's quite interesting. It's something I have not seen
It's a new concept. I think I just bumped into it, and I learned once is the powder. When you want to fry it, you can actually fry it, but then you have to, it's powder, so you now mix it up and make it into a paste, and then you fry it, and then it now looks like fried eggs.
Wow. Interesting. I would like to try that out.
Okay.
Maybe we'll bring it on the show.
But we Nigerians are very skeptical about something new.
We don't quickly adapt to change. But I think we'll get there.
It's hard to know that about 2 million eggs have had to be buried. Imagine children need eggs, especially,
and
eggs are being wasted. It is sad.
As you said, you continue to bring the matter to the fore for the government to do something about it, and we'll see how that pans out. So we're going to look at the Forex market. I'll start off with the Forex market. Gladly is very, very good. We saw the Forex reserves, the country's Forex reserve, make a U-turn back to positive territory last week after declining for 2 consecutive weeks. Now, we saw data from the CBN saying that it rose by $25.17 million week on week to close at $35.28 billion as at May the 4th. That's still not very encouraging from $39 billion that we always know it to be at, the level that we are used to. Now, however, market trading at the Forex market trading ended still in negative total transactions at the FX spot forwards futures market dropped by 21.07% to close at $378.89 million. That's a very low amount of transactions in terms of the value. Now, but look at the FX spot market. We did see an uptick there, 3.23%. That's the I&E window to close at $328.53 million. We'll say that the FX, that the I&E window, drove most of the transactions in terms of value, because that's more where we see the highest amount of money there. Now, we'll also look at the Naira segment, that's the NAFEX. We saw that it did drop again 0.06% to close at 462 Naira 70 kobo against 462 Naira 42 kobo we saw in the previous week. Now we're looking at other markets. We see the FX, the fixed income markets, there's still bullish sentiments in that space. Bonds close, yields keep trending lower. Now we see in the treasury bills market as well, trending low in terms of yields, and that's because there's a bit of excess liquidity in the system. We're going to call on Gafar Bashiru. He is a senior associate, global markets, party and partners, to share his insights on the program as to what happened last week. Good morning, Gafar. It's good to talk to you today.
Good morning, William. Thanks for having me today.
Gafar, we'll just quickly, delve into this one. You saw last week the DMO released details of the securitization of the 22.7 trillion naira. That's following the approval of the National Assembly. Now, contrary to expectations, it will now only be issued to the central bank and not to the public. What does this change mean? Are there any implications of this new development?
Thank you for the question. Like you correctly said, we saw a quick succession of approval of the Ways and Means securitization plan of the federal government by our lawmakers, first by the Senate and then by our House of Rep. And for the markets, the implication, looking at the details of the agreements, what we have the federal government attempting to securitize, or wanting to securitize 22.7 trillion in overdraft in terms of Ways and Means. And this is a debt that, by the new law, is supposed to be repaid over a period of 40 years, right? Although with 3-year moratorium on the principal. So by implication, the DMO, the federal government, is expected to pay just the interest in the first 3 years of the duration of this bond. Right, and the debt is issued at 9% to the central bank, and the implication is that we're going to have about 2 trillion in debt servicing for the next 3 years, in addition to whatever existing budgetary plans that exist for the federal government. For 2023, in the interim, we can expect to see a supplementary budget at some point in the year in an attempt to raise the financing that the federal government would need to repay the central bank this portion of their debt. And this is separate from other debt funding or debt raise plans that the federal government has. And its potential we could potentially see some, when that happens, at the period when that happens, yields could potentially trend upwards, but we'd wait for that to happen before and we'll see how it plays out by then.
Okay, so very quickly, what activities will influence investors play in the market this week? What should we look out for?
For the bond market, majorly, there's investors in the bond market are currently looking towards the bond auction for next week. We've seen, especially from closing last week, we've seen players begin to sell attempt to sell their positions in an attempt to re-enter at higher yields at the auction next week. And what that means is we expect to see yields potentially trend upwards this week to some extent, depending when the auction happens on Monday. And for treasury bills market, we're also seeing some bearish sentiment, right? Despite the fact that we have some healthy liquidity, 300 billion, we are seeing less appetite for treasury bills securities in the market. Instead, we have investors looking towards money market instruments offered by banks and non-banking financial institutions offering such products. So the fixed income market generally, there's a hint of bearishness that that's been prevailing, and we expect to prevail this week as well.
Okay, so bearish sentiments, meaning yields are going to trend up this week. Thank you so much, Gafar Bashiru, Senior Associate, Global Markets, Party and Partners, for sharing your insights on the program. So that's how we ended with the markets. All-share index for the equities markets, 0.12%, marginally up, slightly up from, it survived, 2 bearish trading sessions last week, and to close at 52,465.31 points. And then we just see I'm looking forward to.
I'm surprised you're calling 0.1 to marginal, because I mean, when you have 0.01,
I had to say slightly because I was like, it was marginal in my own, standard. My standard is high. So this is what we're ending with, and we're hoping that market opens very green.
Very green. All right. Thank you so much, Will. So Will gives way to Laddie Williams for his own market, which is obviously the crypto market that never goes to sleep, never observes a public holiday.
Yes.
Very greedy market at this time.
Yeah, just like Will.
And just like your tie.
Yeah, very greedy, very red. It's been a rough weekend for investors.
But you still ended up the weekend with a greed.
But still greed, but we see it's tending downwards, trying to get back to fear at some point, because that's what we're seeing in the market right now. Let's look at the top cryptocurrencies we track. We see Bitcoin down 2.74%. It did try to get above that 30K level again, made another attempt, but we saw the bears sell off at that level. Ethereum losing that 2,000 level, still around the 1,800 level, 2.29%, almost 3% down, even though we saw Ethereum Foundation sold about $30 billion worth of Ethereum. Who knows what's going to happen next at that price? Could that be the top? BNB, $317 down 1.97%. I believe we have Rume Ofi now, financial market analyst. Hello, Rume.
Good morning, Laddie.
Morning, Rume. Very rough weekend for crypto investors, but I see you're excited. As usual, Rume the Bear, that's what we call you on this show. But Rume, tell me about this. We saw Ethereum Foundation there. They sold about $30 billion worth of Ethereum. The last time they did that, they sold the top, and from there went to a bear market. Could this be the top for Ethereum at $2,000?
So, Laddie, what has just happened now is, although a lot of people don't like to agree, what has just happened now is a signal that this might just be the local top. All of the macroeconomy are not supporting risky asset, and Bitcoin and Ethereum actually part of it. So that $13 million for Ethereum being sent to Cochrane was just a sell-off signal. If you ask me, I would say a sell-off event that had just happened. The last time it happened, we saw how down the market went to, and all of this can be also related to the demand and supply strategy. If there are people demanding to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum, the price goes up, and when there's a huge sell, the price goes down, and that sell-off was really massive. And we're going to see, it might, like the last time, I think 2 days back or so, it touched $2,000 again, then went back to where it is now. And we might see some very brutal downside, but I think a lot of persons need to be really, really careful, like I said, and expect the very best. If you ask me, if I say worst, it would mean like I'm wishing the entire industry
the preacher of doom. All right. Last week, the federal government approved the Nigeria blockchain policy. How are you guys in the crypto space? How are you seeing this?
All right, thank you very much, Laddie, for this. The truth is that I must give kudos to the present administration of Muhammad Buhari for approving that blockchain policy, because at least we've been crying on this on various platforms and also here on this channel on why we need to have some level of clarity on the way forward. The blockchain policy is going to open investment up for Nigeria, and I know the incoming administration is going to really jump on it. For the idea that we need to have education, our institutions begin to get involved in blockchain education. The policy will also allow a blockchain-based voting system, and all of that projects that are going to come in that is going to help our economy. We need all of these to boost our economy. But that is not to say that there are no concerns about the crypto transaction ban by the CBN that happened some years ago, but I believe that with time, all of these are going to take shape. Things happen gradually, and the authorities need to give a close and diligent look into all of these, because it has happened in different parts of the world before. Saudi Arabia banned cryptocurrency at some point. Now they allowed it, and as well the MiCA bill, that's the market in crypto asset bill that was just passed by the European Parliament, also had an issue before, but now there's some form of clarity. I believe these are steps, but a lot of players in this space, I think, don't have that patience. But I want to beg them to have that patience with government, because at the end of the day, government has interest of all of us to better our economy.
Right, clarity. That's what we need right now. Thank you so much, Rume Ofi, financial market analyst. Thank you.
Thank you, Ladi.
Yeah, so, Ini, that's it. We need a lot of clarity right now. We did say 2023 was the year of regulation for the crypto industry, and it's already turning out.
Yeah, turning out. So waiting on the CBN, and also watching the body language of the president-elect.
Exactly.
To see if that'll bring a change in the crypto space.
Yeah, definitely watching out for all of that.
All right, Ladi, thank you so much. I think we'll see you at 1:30, Business Incorporated.
1:30.
All right. So that's it on the program. Today is the very first one for the week. We have 4 more to go. I hope you enjoyed today's own, and please, if you can, do find a way to create that business and touch small businesses, and of course the poultry farmers. They need you. We'll make a better Nigeria. That's it on the program today. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm Ini John Lekwan.